welcome everybody to our NATS 23 info session. We're so excited to have y'all here tonight. My name is Lauren Burt. I'm the Director of Competition for the NSDA, and I am joined by the wonderful Annie Reisner, our Director of Membership, who oversees the operational side of Nationals. And of course, we are lucky here tonight to have our Arizona host committee with us. I know many of you are familiar with the challenge it can be to get your team traveled to and competing at nationals, so you can certainly appreciate the immense amount of work it is to plan to welcome 10,000 people into your city. And our host committee has truly been doing some tremendous work for us. So I first want to introduce our chair of the host committee, Meg Howell-Haymaker from Mountain View High School in Mesa. Meg, would you like to introduce your committee?
Hi, everybody. My name is Meg Howell, and we are very excited to have you come to Arizona this summer. I see Kevin Burlett. He is here. He's on our Arizona District Chair and District Committee, and I believe Richard Glover was supposed to chime in this evening, and Tim Cornwell and Brittany Stanchik. And I heard promises of other Arizona coaches planning to join in to help answer questions if anybody has any questions.
Well, thank you to Meg and the whole committee for all of your work. We look forward to hearing your insights later in the night. But tonight, our main goal is really to give y'all the information that we got so far. We send out a survey to all of the coaches and students that attended nationals after the tournament is over. And one of the questions we ask on that survey is, what advice would you give to coaches who are attending nationals next year? And overwhelmingly, the advice that those coaches said was begin planning the logistics of your tournament, particularly with hotels, as soon as you can. And I know it is super early for many of you. It's pretty early for us as well, but we wanted to give you what we got with the very honest caveat that we don't have all the answers yet. So we are giving you the information we have so far to help you with your early planning, and then hope that your questions tonight, whether we can or cannot answer them at this point, will guide us in knowing what information you're looking for in the coming months. But overall, we are super happy to see your faces tonight.
Quick overview of what we're going to cover tonight. So a reminder at the top that, the districts is not the only way that you can qualify to nationals anymore. Students can make another attempt at qualifying in their main event via the last chance qualifier, which takes place in April. So we'll go over a couple of those details, as well as the reminder that each member school has the ability to send up to 2 students in supplemental events to join us in person in Arizona. So a couple of different ways to make it to the great Phoenix Mesa area this year. We'll cover high school nationals first at the top. We'll go through the venues for competition and special events, hotels and transportation, registration, and what your day looks like on Sunday or Tuesday if you're in middle school or only competing in supplemental events and joining us for the second half of the week. Judging requirements and what competition will be like, as well as special instructions and guidelines for supplemental only competitors. We'll wrap things up on our end with middle school before handing things over to the committee to talk about some of their, recommendations for Phoenix Mesa and what they have in store for us this summer.
So first, before we dive into nationals, we wanted to talk about 2 chances outside of districts for you to get your schools to nationals. The first one, like Annie mentioned, is our last chance qualifier being held online this year, April 27th through 29th. Registration's due the 21st of April. So mark your calendars, but this is a free live online event that is kind of a last shot for students who did not qualify out of their district tournament to qualify to come to nationals in a main event. In order to participate, the school itself must have attended the districts, sent at least 1 student in any event, including big questions, in order to have their school register for the last chance qualifier. And if your school has registered for the last chance qualifier, then you are eligible to send any district's eligible student to compete. If your school competed at any event at districts, you are eligible to send any student from your school that is districts eligible to compete at the last chance qualifier. Students that are registered for the last chance qualifier cannot be qualified in any event if they're participating at the last chance qualifier, unless they've been chosen for world schools and are looking to try it for a shot at one of our other main events. The URL that up there at the top, speechanddebate.org/NSDA qualifier, has all of the tournament information you could ever need. But we're really excited to offer this opportunity for a second time this year. The second chance for schools to get to nationals without qualifying out of districts is through this non-qualifier supplemental participation program. Any member school is eligible to pick 2 member students to bring to nationals and supplemental events. There's no requirements that that school or those students attended the district tournament. It is open to any member school. This is a great chance if your school is already attending nationals and you've got another 1 or 2 students that you think deserve to be there but didn't qualify this year, to come along and participate in supplemental events and get that national tournament opportunity. Or if your school doesn't have any qualifiers but wants to come for a couple of days and see what the buzz about nationals is about, that opportunity is available to your school as well.
Big news is the national tournament website is now updated with all of the information that we're going to cover tonight for the most part. The middle school site is live as well. So look forward to checking all this info out or going back to refer to anything that we talk about tonight. So the tabs up at the top of that page at speechanddebate.org/nationals will help you navigate around. If you're on desktop and you hover over each of those tabs, it'll give you a little preview of what's in store there. So you have an easier time getting around, but that has all your tournament details. It has all your links to everything that you'll need to access, as well as that countdown to keep you motivated and looking forward to what we have in store this summer.
Now, I know a lot of you, the first thing you're planning is your hotels. Our hotel block is now open. You can find it at the /nationals website that Annie just talked about. And in order to book your hotels early, I'm sure the first question that you all have is, where are the events themselves happening? And I'm going to give you what we got so far. Congress will be at the Phoenix Convention Center downtown all week. That is both the House and Senate Monday through Friday competition. Phoenix Convention Center. Also at the Phoenix Convention Center downtown will be our Sunday events for high school, including registration, our receptions, our caucuses, everything that happens on Sunday. Registration for middle school, that's on Tuesday evening, will also happen at the Convention Center. Finals for high school on Thursday and Friday will be downtown, and all middle school competition will move to that Convention Center on Friday as well. So that's downtown at the Phoenix Convention Center. The rest of everything else, so main speech and debate competition prior to finals, as well as our supplemental event competition in both debate and speech prior to finals, and middle school on Wednesday and Thursday will be held in Mesa. So Annie's going to show you a map in a minute of all of our hotels, and you'll notice that we've got a good chunk downtown and a good chunk in Mesa, and then them scattered in between. And that's kind of the reason that we have those, and we hope that this information helps you choose where you're going to stay. Other likely things are that we do expect interp and public address events to be at 2 separate venues this year, just like they were in Louisville. And we do expect World Schools to have its own building in Mesa throughout the week until finals. We do not have more information about what specific event is going to be at what specific school yet, but we are headed back down to Phoenix at the end of March, and we'll have that information published for you on the website by April 1.
So each of these venues, thankfully, will have air conditioning indoors. That Phoenix heat is no joke, which I think will probably be something that we mentioned several times throughout the night. We will have free Wi-Fi for participants at all venues. There will be the nurse and security, which is standard at all of our competitions. Lunch and concessions will be for sale. Those menus for meals will be available this spring so that you can see what we potentially will be serving. Each venue will also have the tournament office, which is where you can go to connect with tournament staff if you need help, as well as the belonging and inclusion station, which replaces formerly the equity office, which is where you can go if you have a concern with how someone or yourself is being treated or report issues with harassment and discrimination. We'll also have all gender restrooms, a quiet room, and lactation room. There should be a sign when you come in the front entry of a school telling you where all these things are located. But if you ever have a question or concern about where something is, follow the signs to the tournament office, and we can always direct you to where you need to go. If you have an accommodation request, you can contact Dr. Paul Porter at paul.porter@speechanddebate.org. If you need ADA accessible hotel rooms, you'll want to contact our housing bureau, which is the same way you'll book your hotel rooms on our website. That link is available.
So this is a handy map that shows our plan tentatively of the venues that we are going to use this summer. Over here, the 1 represents the Phoenix Convention Center. So that's Congress all week and our special events on Sunday and Thursday, Friday finals. This is the Hall of Fame venue, which is an invitation only event held on Sunday. And then out here are what we are expecting to be the 5 schools that we use in Mesa for competition before finals for speech, debate, and SUPs. The actual school names you can find on our website. There's a schedule and venues document that's linked at the top of the navigation bar. And these, like I said, are tentative, but that's the plan. As I mentioned a couple minutes ago, you can expect that one of these 5 buildings will be interp, one of them will be public address, one of them will be world schools, and depending on how the room count shakes out, debate events will be combined at the other ones. A lot of them have middle schools or smaller buildings next door that we may end up using as well, but these are kind of the main points when you're looking at hotels and kind of planning your week, that you can see here's the downtown location and here is Mesa.
So in addition to the schools that are marked in that kind of maroon color on the map, the hotels are marked in blue. So this map is available on our website at /nationals, but it's on the Your Stay tab if you want to follow along and kind of click around. The blue marks the hotels. So you can see we have plenty of options, both kind of in a downtown Phoenix hub and then moving out into Mesa. The green marks the light rail, which we'll talk about here in a minute. The map on our website also has yellow, which indicates the park and ride stations for the light rail where you can leave your vehicle, which we'll also get to here in a minute. So like Lauren said, the hotel block is open now. If you head to our website and you go to that Your Stay tab, you can access the hotel block anytime and start searching for rooms. If you need 10 or more, please contact the Housing Bureau using the email or phone number on our website so they can help you get set up with that, as well as if you need ADA accessible rooms. You can select, if you select your hotel during registration on Tab Room, you get the $25 discount per student off your entry fees for staying in our block, which allows us to offer you those lower rates and ensure that everyone can stay where they need to stay. We would encourage you to start booking your hotels now, even if you're not sure where your students will be competing. You can drop your rooms if you end up not needing them, or if you need to move somewhere else, to make sure that you can stay where you want to stay. Earlier is better. Each of the hotels on the website will have a date by which you have to drop to not have a penalty for canceling your reservation. So just, pay attention to that as you go about booking your reservations, but we would encourage you to get on there, start poking around and making some plans sooner rather than later. In terms of transportation, it is up to individual programs. Many schools use rental vehicles or charter buses or school buses to get around. We have discount codes available on our website for Delta, United, as well as Hertz rental vehicles. The light rail, which I mentioned, runs from Northwest Phoenix through Tempe and into part of Mesa. It doesn't run out all the way to the end of the schools that we're planning to be using, but that is an option for getting around. As in every major city with public transportation, proceed with caution with using that, especially in the evenings and with students traveling in groups or with an adult. Follow your school policies and act responsibly in that case. And also be prepared that with public transportation, there is always a risk of there being delays, and considering, how timely you need, whether you need to arrive somewhere exactly on time, it might not be the best option. So keep that in mind. You can check out the routes on our website. There's a park and ride, which is free. The light rail is $2 per day for students and $4 per day for adults. So it's a very reasonable cost for getting around. And it's a great option for if you're staying out in Mesa and you want to head to the convention center for registration or to final rounds, you could park your vehicle for free at a park and ride and kind of save the drive into Phoenix traffic if you want to take the light rail. So that's an option. Parking at the Phoenix Convention Center is $12 a day. And food will be available for purchase at each venue. As I said, those menus will be available later this spring. So we'll get a little bit into the details with what the start of your week is going to look like. So registration opens on tabroom.com on March 15th. It is due May 15th. That includes all your fees, your judges, everything needs to be in by May 15th. You'll also want to register your attendees on the judges and attendees tab, which I'll come back to here in a minute. So Sunday registration, you'll come in, you'll pick up all of your materials from us. You'll have an opportunity to ask any questions. Registration is held at the convention center. It typically begins 8 or 9 in the morning, runs till about 4 o'clock is regular registration. And then we offer late registration from 4 or 5 up until about 7 o'clock. If you're not able to make it during those times, we do offer a late registration early Monday morning. That location is to be determined. It's typically about 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. that runs. We really don't recommend it, but in the case of an emergency or you're not able to make it to registration, your flight's delayed, you need to pick up your materials, we do offer that opportunity to still come in and get what you need before things start. In terms of what the rest of your Sunday looks like, there's special events that you can attend. Coach caucuses are going to be offered again this year. Those times are TBD, but we also have the new coach receptions will be available one Sunday morning, one Sunday afternoon. District leader event will still be happening. Lots of things are going on during the day on Sunday. So take a look at those details on our website and make a plan to try and get to the ones of those that you'd like to attend. In terms of health and safety, per CDC recommendations, we encourage attendees to stay up to date on their vaccinations, including their booster doses. We also recommend following guidelines for travel, isolation if you have confirmed COVID or if you believe you've been exposed to someone who has COVID. We do not currently plan to require masks for attendees, but we do recommend that all attendees talk with their primary care providers about what's best for them and make those decisions on their own. We will continue to monitor the situation both in Arizona and nationally and make changes as needed, but those are our plans as of today. On our end, we will include language on ballots instructing judges not to evaluate students based on whether or not they're wearing a mask, as we did last year, and allowing speech students to only enter the room for the length of their performance as needed. We'll also be requiring identification again this year. Those are the ribbons that you receive at registration. So that's part of why it's important to register your attendees on your judges and attendees tab on your tab room registration, is so they can pick up those identifying materials to ensure that they're able to be in schools. So anyone entering a competition venue needs to have an identifying ribbon indicating that they are cleared and associated with some school to be in this venue as part of our event. In order to be registered, these folks will have to have a tabroom.com account that's linked and added on there. So that's something that we have resources for how to set those up if they need a hand, but that's something to keep in mind as you're thinking about your registration, that everyone over the age of 12 needs to have that tabroom.com account so their ribbons will be ready for them when they head to registration. Anyone 12 or under, they can pick up those ribbons on site, but they don't need to request them in advance. We're not going to require that for children. So coaches and judges will receive badges as well as name tags at registration. They can also pick up special identifying ribbons that say things like district leader or new coach at nationals, so we can check in with you during the week and see how your experience is going for your first time joining us. Attendees who aren't coaches, judges, or competitors will have an attendee ribbon that they'll wear. Students will have competitor ribbons, which are red, white, and blue, and then there's special ribbons for Congress competitors, which is part of our historical tradition. Those ribbons need to be worn at all times when you're in competition venues. Even if students are done competing, they still need to bring those with them. Definitely a good reminder when you have students who are competing in SUPs beginning on Wednesday. Sometimes they forget that they're done with their main event. They still need to bring their ribbon. They do. So entering those folks in tab room ensures that if someone does forget their ribbon, they can come in and request a new one, and we can look them up in the system and confirm that they are associated with someone and are meant to be there with us. And all those ribbons pin onto your clothing, so dress accordingly. I know sometimes there's specific things that you don't want to hole in.
All right, judging. So for nationals, judging, if you've been to the national tournament in the last 3 years, you're familiar with our Judge Day system, and it'll look pretty similar this year. One thing I wanted to talk about was just taking 5 steps back and talking about the basics for a minute. If you are new to nationals, one thing you got to know is that every school owes a minimum of 2 days of judging that is filled by a real life human person that you bring to Phoenix and Mesa to judge for us. That's the only way we can make the competition happen. Even if you have fewer entries than 2 days of judging obligates you, it is still 2 days minimum for any school that's joining us at the national tournament. But as most tournaments, if you bring more entries to the tournament, you owe more required days of judging. And a day of judging is truly a day. So a Monday or a Tuesday or a Wednesday, it is going to a venue on that particular day and being available for all of the rounds that are happening on that day. We don't know in advance exactly which rounds you're going to be judging, but our goal is that a judge knows that on Monday they will be at the Intert building and they are eligible to judge any of the 4 or so rounds that are happening on that day. Speech, supplemental, and Congress judging obligations can be purchased or bought out for $120 a day. And all judges must be at least 2 years out of high school. We do our best to catch that in our registration system if you enter a student who's accidentally not 2 years out of high school, but there is a pretty hefty fee that comes along with bringing an ineligible judge because we can't use them at the tournament to judge our rounds. So please make sure you're checking with your judges to make sure that they are 2 full years out of high school before you register them. You know, we are pretty consistently getting messages from judges that want to be hired to come to the national tournament, but don't know a school that is looking for judges. And we are pretty consistently getting messages from schools that are looking for judges to hire, but don't know where to find them. So our answer to that is the Hired Judges Board, which you can find on that /nationals website. And this is really kind of like a job board where judges can say, hey, I'm available to be hired generally, but there's a special section for I'm available to be hired for the in-person Phoenix Mesa National Tournament or middle school national tournament to kind of aid schools in the efforts of finding judges if they don't have people in their normal circles that are available in June. This is really just a way for us to say, here's their name, here's their contact information, and if they seem to fit what you need, you are welcome to reach out to them and make arrangements on your own with that judge. So we encourage you to check that out or share that with schools who are looking. Thanks, Sarah. Glad you're able to use it. Some more about judging. Like I said, the Judge Day system is on an event, venue, and day basis. So when you enter a judge into the Nationals registration system, you will say how many days of your judging obligation they're covering, 1, 2, or 3, which events they're eligible to judge, which could be any of the debate events or the speech supplementals or Congress judging pool. And then on June 8th, you will be able to log into tab room as coaches and see exactly which days and venues and events each of your judges has been assigned to. So on June 8th, you'll be able to log into tab room and see my judge Annie is assigned to judge LD on Monday and extemp debate on Friday. And my judge Meg is assigned to judge speech on Tuesday and Wednesday in the Intert building. Now, you are locked into the days and the events that you are assigned on June 8th, but there is a little bit of flexibility to say, hey, Annie's actually a way better speech judge than Meg. So let's have Meg go judge extemp debate and move Annie into the speech pool because I want her to be my chaperone, or I want her to have experience judging speech, or I want her to be able to coach the students at that building. So this is kind of our answer to your chaperoning needs and the ability to give you a little bit of flexibility with availability with your judges, but that is pretty limited. So please, please exercise caution when you're entering your judges into the Nationals registration system. There are 2 pretty common mistakes we see coaches making when entering those judges. First, that they're entering judges for more days than they are obligated to judge, and then being surprised when they are assigned to judge that many days. So if you enter Pam Wyckoff as a speech judge for 3 days, but you only owe 2 days, Pam will be assigned to judge 3 days of judging. And on June 8th, those 3 days of obligated judging are locked in because we're relying on you for that judging at the tournament at that point. So make sure you're not entering extra days, and make sure if you have a judge that can only be there for 1 day, that you're only entering them for 1 day of judging. The second most common mistake we see is that coaches are entering judges for more events than they are actually able to judge. For example, if I was entered as a judge for a school that only had speech entries coming to the tournament, so they only owed speech judges, but they would say, Lauren knows LD, Lauren's an LD coach. So they say, Lauren is going to cover my speech obligation, but can also judge LD. Then we get to the tournament on June 8th and find that I've been assigned to judge LD and speech, but have no way to get to the LD venue. And I'm leaving the speech students unchaperoned at a tournament because I'm judging LD where I have no students at that school. Again, those days and those judging obligations are locked in on June 8th. So be really, really careful about what you're signing your judges up for in the registration system, because there's not much we can do after June 8th. And that is not us being mean, I promise. It is that we have 4,000 judges to place on 5 different days of the tournament. And it becomes really difficult if we're trying to guess which days or which events work best for your school. You can always reach out to us too if you have questions about what potentially could happen with your judges. But like I mentioned, between that June 8th to June 10th at noon window, coaches can log in and see where their judges have been assigned and scoop people around assignments to work best for your chaperoning needs or your coaching needs or whatever works best for your school. But they will be locked in on June 10th at noon Mountain Time. You should know that a judge that you say is in for 2 different events or 3 different events might be assigned 1 day in one event, a different day in a second event, and a third day in a third event if you sign them up for multiple events. There's other thing to note is that all speech, congress, and SUP judges are eligible for Wednesday through Friday judging and supplemental events. Any judge in the tournament might be pulled for SUPs, but that is the pool that we go to first, is that speech, congress, and SUPs judge pool. And again, just being honest so you can plan ahead, if you are entering a judge in that speech, congress, and SUPs judging pool for 3 days, it is very likely that they will receive a supplemental event assignment on Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. We need lots of judges on Monday, Tuesday of the tournament, and not a lot of judges in main events on Wednesday, Thursday of the tournament. So if you're in for 3 days, it is likely, not guaranteed, but it is likely that your judge will be assigned to a Monday, Tuesday, and then a supplemental event on Wednesday, Thursday to fill that third day. So again, planning ahead, if you don't have students in supplemental events, making sure you know that's a possibility and have transportation planned for them, or have other ideas for what your students are going to do during the day while that person is judging, because your school is obligated for the days that they receive judging assignments for, even if your students are done competing on Tuesday. So again, plan ahead, make sure you know all possibilities. And if you have any questions about where your judges might possibly be assigned, we don't want this to be a scary process or to surprise you on June 8th. So reach out to us in advance and we're happy to walk you through that process. Now, the actual process for judges when they're on site, all assignments are coming through tabroom.com. So you'll notice that all your judges need to have a Tabroom account before they can be registered for the tournament, because that is where they will find out whether or not they're judging. Like I mentioned earlier, when you're judging, you are judging for a full day. So if you are a Monday policy debate judge and there are 4 rounds on the schedule for Monday and policy debate, that means that you are eligible to be called for any of those 4 rounds. Again, planning ahead, that does mean that it can be difficult to leave the building during the day for 4 or 5 hours at a time, because you might be called for a judging assignment. So making sure that you're planning ahead with your chaperoning needs at other buildings. Judges will find out about 30 minutes before each round whether they have an assignment or not. We got some feedback after last year's tournament that judges wish they had more time between knowing that they were not judging a round and being available to see if they were judging the next round. Traditionally, the way it's kind of worked is that if you don't receive a judging assignment, that you wait in this judge pooling room to see if you're called to be a replacement. And we hear you on that. That is not ideal to be sitting in a room all day. So what we are hoping to do and working toward is doing better messaging through Tabroom about what you can expect regarding your obligation for a particular round. So fingers crossed, what our developers are working on right now is a way that 30 minutes before each round, a judge can look at their tab room account and see one of three things. One, you've got a round assignment, you should go to your room and start judging. Two, you do not have an assignment right now, but you are in the standby pool, which means that if we need a replacement judge because someone isn't able to make it, you are going to be one of the first people we call. So you should make sure you're standing by in that judge pooling room because we might use you. Or three, you are not being used this round. So you're not in a standby pool, you are not judging this round, and you are free to leave the building for the next 2.5 hours or so until the next round starts. And our hope is that instead of all of the judges who are not judging that round sitting in the judge pooling room and then being dismissed and having about an hour and a half off, is that we can give you back an hour of time so you can go check in on students at other buildings or make sure your students are eating or do some coaching or whatever you need to do during the day. So we hear you on that not being the ideal system, and we're working on better messaging to improve that for us. I will say we do have a lot of instances in which judges will come to the tournament office and say, you know, I missed my round, but I didn't get a text message from tab room saying that I was judging. And so we will say up front, please do not rely on text messages to know whether or not you are judging. Tab room text messages are pretty good, but phone service is not always reliable. And we are sending tens of thousands of text messages through tab room that week. And it is almost guaranteed that some of them will get caught up in the phone webs or however that works. So instead, we encourage judges to be looking at their tab room account and refreshing to see when they have a round assignment and checking in with that judge pooling room if they're not sure. Lastly, we'll be using online ballots again, just like we did last year through tabroom.com. It went really great and got awesome feedback. So we're excited to do it again, but that does mean that you got to remind your judges to bring their chargers and their devices and be hip on how to use those online ballots before we start, because we are not printing any schematics or ballots this year. Last thing on this page is just a couple of reminders for your judges that there's a May 15th deadline of a couple things they got to do. If they're in policy or LD, there's a questionnaire they got to fill out asking about their preferences for judging in that event. There's a demographics questionnaire. There's some required judge training that they have to certify that they completed. And then on Sunday at the national tournament at the Phoenix Convention Center, World Schools judges are required to attend an in-person judge training. There's a makeup on Monday morning if they can't make it, but there's also optional judge trainings for judges in any event that just want a refresher before they go into things on Sunday. So make sure that's on your calendar if your judges are feeling nervous or could use some extra love before throwing them into competition on Monday. And supplemental events. Supplemental events are events that begin on Wednesday of the national tournament. Any student who competed in main events and then does not move on to elimination rounds on Wednesday is eligible to be part of our supplemental event competition. You'll notice the ability to pre-register all of your students for supplemental events in your tabroom.com registration, and that pre-registration is due by May 15th. It is non-refundable, and you can register students for as many events as you want. I know lots of us go into nationals just not quite knowing what our students are going to do, and it's worth the $25 entry fee to have time to figure it out. But I do want to tell you up front that there are limitations to what your students can actually compete in at the national tournament. So we don't want you to register a student for 5 different supplemental speech events, not knowing that they can only actually compete in 2 of them. That leads me to the next point, is that this is a little bit new this year, that we do have our supplemental speech events split into 2 different patterns for ease of the competition schedule, and students can actually compete in 1 supplemental speech event per pattern. So a total of 2 events. You can again pre-register for as many as you want, but re-registration, you'll only be able to select 1 per pattern for them to re-register for. Or of course there's extemp debate, and you can't do extemp debate and step speech. One big takeaway from this is that you must re-register your students on Tuesday of the national tournament between 12 p.m. and 10 p.m. Mountain Time in tab room if they are going to compete. This is something that y'all are really great at. I mean, it takes 5 seconds to go into tab room, click the re-registration tab and toggle the button of the student that you want to re-register. But I do want to say up front as many times as we can that if you do not toggle that button to tell us that the student will be competing on Wednesday morning, they will not be scheduled for competition. There's a 10-hour window and we will work with you with whatever you need to help do it for you if you needed to email us in. But if it's after that deadline, it is really hard for us to find the space in the rooms and repair rounds to get students in after the fact. So make sure if you've got students that are pre-registered in supplemental events, you've got an alert on your calendar to re-register them on Tuesday. Now, if you are a school that is only bringing non-qualifiers in supplemental events, meaning you don't have any students competing on Monday and Tuesday, the way to register for nationals is after your whole district tournament series is over, regardless of whether you went or not, you will see the National Speech and Debate Tournament listed under existing tournament registrations, which is right on your tab room homepage. So right when you log into tab room, you'll see National Speech and Debate Tournament open there for you to register students if you choose. And you'll complete the registration process after that, just like any other normal tournament registration process. The actual in-person registration for schools that are only competing in supplemental events can happen on Sunday, just like all the other schools that are competing in main events, or you can wait until Tuesday. We'll have a separate registration option in case you don't feel like coming in early to do that, although it is a great opportunity to watch rounds. All of our rounds are open. Even students that are only in supplemental events must re-register those students on Tuesday through tab room. Our staff spends a lot of late hours that night trying to manually go through and find students who came all the way to Phoenix just to compete in supplemental events and toggle them re-registered, but I'm sure we will miss people. So again, please make sure that that's on your calendar with an alert. But we can say that judges of supplemental event only schools will only be used on Wednesday through Friday, though it may be in any event on Wednesday through Friday.
So speaking of supplementals, when we're talking about kind of, okay, here's all this information now, what do you recommend? We have a few suggestions for you to take or leave, but here's kind of our 2 cents for shaping your week. We encourage you to have your students try supplementals. They're called supplemental for a reason. They're designed to supplement the tournament experience. Now they encompass the entire tournament experience for some students. They're designed to be an additional learning experience for students who are traveling all this way. There are public, address, interp, and debate events available for students to choose from. And it's a great opportunity to try something new or to be able to compete in an event that's really popular in your local area against students from all parts of the country and at times, parts of the world. So it's a great learning experience for students. We'd encourage you to look into it. The second thing is driving your route in advance, whether that be Sunday or Tuesday, but before your students begin competition. Get everybody in whatever vehicle you're taking to get where you're going and drive that Monday morning or Wednesday morning drop-off route so that you know how to get where you're going, where students are going to be dropped off, which entrances they're going to, where you might pick them up. It will alleviate a lot of stress and anxiety on that first morning when you're rushing to get where you need to go. If you've done it before and you know where you're going, this is something that coaches who have been to the tournament before really recommend doing. So we're passing that suggestion along to you. The next thing is to bring what you need to succeed, right? So that Arizona heat we mentioned, it's no joke. Bring a reusable water bottle and stay hydrated. Make sure your students are doing the same. They're taking care of themselves. Bring your favorite snacks, chargers, power strips, comfortable shoes, layers, whatever you need to be comfortable and ready to compete, judge, support students. Pack that with you and have it available for you at all times. The next step is to coordinate with other coaches from your district or from middle schools in your local area. I know there are a lot of NSDA districts that have been doing this successfully for a long time. I know the North Dakota Rough Rider District is kind of famous for doing this. They travel in packs and the coaches from any school are responsible for supervising the students who are at their location. It takes a village to support these efforts, especially if you have students who are spread out at multiple locations. So figuring out who your contacts are to help you in your efforts of coaching and supporting students who are not at your location is important. We are obviously there to help if there's an issue or a question, but for students to have a familiar face that they're building is really valuable. So make those connections, whether you need to contact your district chair or just kind of send out a message to the people in your network, even outside of your district, to see who's coming and which buildings they're going to be at in June is a really valuable resource. The next thing is that if funding is an issue, the Tate Fund offers financial support to schools attending the national tournament. Those applications open in March, so be on the lookout for that in coach newsletters and on the website if that's something that you're interested in applying for in advance. During the week, as we already mentioned, a lot of those Sunday events are happening. If it is your first time at the tournament, we really encourage you to come to one of the 2 new coach receptions. I believe those are scheduled for 10 a.m. and either 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon, but it's a chance to come in and ask your questions, to connect with other new coaches. We typically have coaches who have been through it for sometimes decades who attend and are there as a resource for you, as well as our staff, to really feel like you're starting off the week feeling confident and like you have answers to all your questions and you know where you're headed the next day. It's a valuable way to start your week. The next thing is to watch rounds and awards. So a lot of times people say, we've been eliminated from competition, we're not doing supplementals, what should we do? We encourage you to maximize the learning experience available to your students by watching rounds, out rounds, final rounds, and attending the awards ceremony. It's a great learning experience. The environment is really great for many students. That is the highlight of their national tournament, is, connecting with people from all over and then seeing the best of the best perform in those out rounds and on the final round stage. Come early, because for the really popular events, especially Thursday evening when we get into the interp, the auditoriums and the final round venues, they fill up. So come early if it's important for your team to all sit together. High school students can judge middle school. So students who are eliminated before Wednesday can, instead of doing supplementals, opt to judge middle school competition. I know there's some chatter in the chat box about who's eligible, and if you have any additional questions about that, check there. Otherwise, we'll come back to it at the end. But that's a great opportunity as well for high school students to have the opportunity to be leaders and to give quality feedback to middle school students who maybe they once attended as a middle schooler and they're kind of on the other side of the table for the first time. We also encourage you to experience what Phoenix and Mesa have to offer. I know our local hosts probably have better suggestions than we do in terms of things to check out. I personally really liked the Herd Museum when I was there, but there are a ton of great food options, attractions. It's hot, but if you want to do something short outdoors, there's great opportunities to really experience what Arizona has to offer. Final tip is to have as much fun as you can and to take care of yourself and your team. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Get as much rest as you can, drink a lot of water, make sure that you and your students are eating. If you are feeling stressed or overwhelmed, you or your students need a break, head to the quiet room and just take a beat. If you need help, we're here to help you. We'll talk about all the ways that you can connect with us here at the end of the session, but just remember that we want it to be fun. We want you to get as much enjoyment out of it as you can and to be as prepared as you can going in with who your connections are going to be and feeling confident in what you're going into to support your team as they compete.
Middle school. We are so excited to bring our middle schoolers back in person this summer in Phoenix and Mesa. We do have our website, like Annie mentioned, that is live at speechanddebate.org/MSNATS. And we encourage you to check it out. It's got all the eligibility information, tournament details, what events, the schedule, everything you could ever want to know on the website. But I will highlight some key details here. First, eligibility. This is an open invitational tournament. There's no qualification process. So if your school and your students are NSDA members and your students by June have just finished their 5th through 8th grade school year, they are welcome to join. Registration kind of mirrors high school in that it opens on March 15th and closes on May 15th. And then instead of a Sunday in-person registration in Phoenix and Mesa, we will do a Tuesday night registration at the Phoenix Convention Center, and competition begins Wednesday and Thursday in Mesa. And then we'll come back downtown to the Phoenix Convention Center on Friday for the rest of the elimination rounds, finals, and our middle school award ceremony. There is an opportunity, like we've been chatting about, for high school students who do not move on to competition elimination rounds on Wednesday and don't feel like competing in SEPs or doing anything else, to come join us at the middle school venue. It is really a fun time seeing the youngest of us learn to love our activity, and there's not a lot better than people who are doing it themselves being in the back of the room. So it's a great opportunity for students to continue to learn and grow and get that teaching experience. In order to be eligible to judge at the middle school national tournament, the student judges need to be juniors or seniors with at least 250 Honor Society points. And that is also true of student judges that are filling an obligation for a school. So we do allow student judges to come with a school and complete that obligation as long as they meet those eligibility standards.
This is a lot of information, so you might be wondering who can help you and how and when. In advance, you can contact our office Monday through Friday at info@speechanddebate.org as usual, or call us on the phone 920-748-6206. A lot of the information that we've covered tonight, I think almost all of it is on the website or will be shortly later this week if there's anything we noticed that came up that we missed that you've asked. But check out those frequently asked questions for sure in the tournament info to find the answers that you need. On site during the week, if you need help, you can always come to the tournament office. Our staff is there to support you and answer questions to help you make it through the week. You can always stop an official in a staff t-shirt or with a national office or tournament official ribbon. The national office ones are blue here. I think the tournament office ones are purple. So we wear those identifiers so that if you need something, you're passing us in a hall, you can flag somebody down and say, hey, I'm having this problem. And if they can't answer you, they can help you find someone who can. Also, during the week, you can email info@speechanddebate.org if you're not able to make it to a tournament office or if it's after hours and you need some support. So Lauren and I want to thank the board for their support of our, the staff efforts in planning the logistics of the tournament. And speaking of thank yous, we're very grateful to our local hosts who we're going to turn it over to for a little rundown of what they have in store for us.
So if you have any questions, we're happy to answer questions. Here's just a few things, and my other committee members can easily chime in as they wish. But I would say when the girls suggested that everyone bring a refillable water bottle, that's a must. We will have water available for sale, but we really encourage everyone to bring refillable water bottles. A lot of our schools now have refillable water stations that provide filtered water. Not all of them do, but they're getting them. But a lot of them have them in every building. The other thing to keep in mind about our high school campuses is that they're large and there are multiple buildings. It's not like one big building that once you go in, you're in. We have multiple buildings, and sometimes you have to walk 5 minutes across a hot campus to get to another building. And so that's something to take in consideration for footwear, but also for clothing. I would say that you want to be able to take off your suit jacket in order to walk across campus. That presents another problem, though. If somebody burns, yes, it's very similar to the Florida. If somebody burns very easily, you want to make sure that they have sunblock available so that when they take off those jackets for their shoulders, maybe for their face, you don't want somebody getting burned. You can get burned here very quickly in the sun, especially if you're fair like I am. And so just those are some things to take into consideration. I would say while the light rail provides opportunities to park and ride to go downtown, I don't think that it is an efficient mode of transportation to get from downtown Phoenix out to the Mesa schools. There are no schools close to a park and ride. If they did do that, they would have to get off of the train station closest to the school and then call an Uber or something like that in order to get to the school. And I will tell you that it's a lot slower than you think it is. I can drive to downtown Phoenix a lot quicker than I can take the light rail to downtown Phoenix. I see Richie's shaking his head, yes. I would say that if you have anybody, and even I'm not a musical person. I played the flute for 3 months and I quit. But I enjoy music. But the MEM, the Musical Instrument Museum, is probably one of the most phenomenal museums in the world. It has museum instruments from all over the world. So if you have students or coaches or judges who are particularly interested in music, that's something that you definitely want to look into. The Heard Museum is all about our Native American Southwest, and it's full of culture and history, and I do hope you get a chance to visit that. And I would say we have lots of water parks and availability for playing in the sun, even river rafting. If you wanted to take the kids down the river, I wouldn't, because they're going to get sunburned, but those are all options that you could do. The morning temperature at 9 a.m. When I go to bed at night, sometimes in June, at let's say 10:30, it's still over 100 degrees. But I will say this, once the sun goes down, 105 degrees doesn't feel quite as the same as 105 degrees when the sun is up. It's the sun that makes it bad. Early morning temperatures can be as high as at 8 or 9 in the morning, as high as 90, 98 degrees. I should open my chat because I see a bunch of questions coming there. What is the distance in the, okay, so from my school, and mine is sort of middle between the whole things, my school to the school farthest east is 12 miles. And then my school to the school that's furthest west is 6 miles. And then you have a spread from east to west. For instance, my school to Kevin's school is 6 miles, a little under 6 miles. So you have a spread that's potentially 18 miles from east to west, and then 6 miles from north to south. If that makes any sense. Can we assume? Yes. Yes. You can assume that the spread will be similar to Louisville. Kevin, Richie, Tim, any other thoughts? I don't know if they can unmute themselves, Lauren. She's working on it. I can get to the convention center in 25 minutes from my house, which is close to my school. It's very easy to navigate the highways and streets in Arizona. I find it less confusing than sometimes a lot of other cities. Some roads, some streets in downtown Mesa, I mean, not downtown Mesa, downtown Phoenix are one way. And you have to be careful of, you have to sometimes go in loops down one way to get over 2 streets to go back. The heavier traffic is definitely going into Phoenix. So I would say if I was a coach and I had Congress kids, I would want to stay in Phoenix and drive out to the venues in Mesa. But if I didn't have Congress kids and I only needed to get downtown for Sunday, Thursday, and Friday, staying out in Mesa is a great opportunity. It's less traffic, it's less crowded, it's easier to get around, less expensive for parking, all those kinds of things.
And our freeway system is pretty good. You'll be using the US 60, which goes from the I-10 out to Mesa. The I-10 is undergoing some construction, but it's not horrible in order to get into downtown Phoenix. But yeah, I would say 40 minutes to an hour if you're going from East Mesa into the downtown Phoenix area in the morning. You know, much less going downtown Phoenix out to East Mesa.
Right. I would say not the 60. I say most people will take the 202 because most of the hotels that are open to them from Phoenix are along the 202.
Okay. The 202 is just north of the 60 if you look on the map, but they both go east-west.
Right. Somebody asked a question. And
there is parking at all of the schools, and
Yeah.
there's no charge for parking at any of the schools. We
Our-
have.
Go ahead.
We have very big parking lots.
We have very big schools. My school is, the population is roughly 3,700. And so all of our juniors and seniors and some sophomores can drive. So we have ample parking. There's not going to be a parking issue at any of the venues. Other questions?
I think the
looking.
question about middle school Congress, that the prelims will be at the middle school site, correct? We're not going to have the middle school Congress kids go all the way into Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that. All middle school competition will be together on Wednesday, Thursday in Mesa, and then all competition, middle school, high school, everything will be at the convention center on Friday.
Okay. You can expect temperatures to get probably in the 115s that week. If we're in good years, we've had an occasional mild June, and good years it's in the little bit lower 107s, but typically it's in the 110s. Yes, Chris, I do remember that very clearly.
Gives
The
new
hot-
meaning to the phrase warm welcome for sure.
Yes, the hottest it was ever been here though was 122 that I recall. And I was walking across the ASU campus on that day.
I will say, and this is coming from someone who's lived in Iowa most of her life, I do not do heat. I also do not really do outdoors generally or walking. But two things I noticed when I was there in July. One, the downtown hotels are actually walkable to the convention center. A good majority of them, like Lauren, walkable to the convention center. And that's of course up to you for your team to figure out, but they were surprisingly close. Like I could throw a rock at the convention center for most of these hotels downtown. Secondly, I noticed I think there was summer school happening when we were at these schools. And I remember asking Meg and Kevin, like, why are all these kids in sweatshirts? It is so hot. It is so hot. And it's because the air conditioning is top notch inside these buildings. So you do have to remember that while it is super hot outside, you and your kids for most of the day will be spending those days inside where it is actually cold. So I know for my nationals, I am planning layers upon layers for the day.
I wear a sweater literally every day. Every day, it doesn't matter if I'm in a school building, I wear a sweater every day because the rooms are so cold. Somebody said, would a hotel in South Scottsdale be way too far if necessary? Now, South Scottsdale is essentially Tempe, and Tempe is halfway between Mesa and Phoenix. So it's not much different. But I would encourage you to stay at the hotels on the list, and we've really tried to keep the hotels in the city of Phoenix and the city of Mesa. Schools. There's a question from Ileana. Can anyone tell us the schools being used for middle school?
Unfortunately, not yet.
Not yet.
I can say that middle school and SUPS will both be in that Mesa grouping that was on the map on Wednesday and Thursday, and in middle school and SUPS will be at the Phoenix Convention Center downtown on Friday. So they kind of follow each other, for Mesa Wednesday, Thursday, downtown on Friday, but we don't know exactly what school each of them is going to be at. We will know by April 1. We'll send that information out, but we got to go down and check out these schools one more time to make sure we got space.
Kevin and I have to inventory one more campus, and we're going to be doing that on the 15th. And then that will provide Lauren a little bit more information, and then she gets to check them out one more time in March.
If you are planning to stay in downtown Phoenix, because you have Congress kids and you want to be near the Congress site, the three main hotels, the Sheraton, the Hyatt, and the Renaissance, are very close to the convention center. The convention center is also very close to Chase Field, home of the Diamondbacks. The Diamondbacks will be in town that week, playing the Phillies and playing the Cleveland Guardians. So if you happen to have a free night and you like baseball, Chase Field is walkable from the convention center. They are right across the street from one another. And as a Diamondbacks fan myself, it's a really, really neat facility. Also, the Phoenix Mercury, our WNBA team, will have a home game on Tuesday the 13th. So there are some opportunities there. Additionally, downtown Phoenix does have a supermarket, which is kind of rare for a downtown area. A Fry's, which is our local brand of Kroger, opened up last year. And again, walkable is, as walkable does, but my wife and I go to the downtown convention center every year for some events. And we prefer to stay at the Sheraton because that's just kind of the hotel we like. And walking from the Sheraton to the Fry's in late May was not horrible for us. So there are opportunities for picking up snacks, bringing them back to your room, getting water, because that's always important. So downtown Phoenix really has improved quite a bit in terms of amenities over the past few years.
Any last questions or comments from our host committee?
It's going to be hot, but it's going to be fun.
It's going to be a great time. I am unbelievably excited for this summer and super grateful for all of you for coming to get this information early, for our host committee, for all of your work. Pam, thanks for being here. Annie, you're great. Hope everybody has a wonderful night.